Alright, what's up, guys? You're back here with another movie review, and today we're continuing our series of reviewing all of Stephen King's adapted movies and sequels to those movies. We are now here with the It 2017 remake, Chapter 1. This took place it was released 27 years after the original miniseries, and my personal opinion, this one was much, much better than the entire miniseries combined. I got some bad things to say about the sequel to this. I did not like the sequel at all. Or I thought it was very lame. And the entire thing was just a giant jump scare fest. This one had a lot of... Now, this isn't going to get an A+ rating. I'm telling you right now. This movie will not get an A+. It may get an A or B. But It Chapter 2, the one that came out this year, doesn't have much structure to it. At least this one had a lot of structure. That's why it was better. It felt like a rated R Stranger Things, which was cool. But I'm looking at this between its own separate thing because, again, It Chapter 2 takes place 27 years after the first film. And it's basically like a whole different story. So I look at this one, I look at Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 as its own different thing. I wouldn't do that with the original miniseries, but since this one's different, this one's a little different than the miniseries, that's what I'm going to do. I'm counting them as two separate stories since they take 27 years apart from each other. And you know what? It Chapter 2 still had some great moments where it was just like the bonding of friendship from the first movie with all the Losers Club. It was a good movie. But it just had no structure, really. And don't even get me started on the Baby It ending with Mike going off and doing like an Indiana Jones bullshit. Pretty soon, Mike's gonna be end up being Matthew McConaughey's secretary in the Dark Tower. Oh, if there's one Stephen King movie that I despise above them all, it has to be the Dark Tower. I fell in love with that book series in the comic books, and when I saw that movie, I almost shit myself. It was so bad. It pissed me off royally. I almost threw a chair across the room. It was that bad. That pissed me off that they fucked up that storyline. Oh, it pisses me off. Oh, I can't wait to get to the fucking Dark Tower. Oh, if there was a category below fucking terrible, I would put it in there. Oh, goddamn. Pisses me off. Fuck you, whoever wrote that. I'm serious. Fuck whoever fucking wrote that movie. It pisses me off. One of my most favorite book series of all time gets fucked up by this stupid millennial asshole that decides to jam all these fucking storylines into one goddamn story. Hence, I give you the fucking Dark Tower movie, where they try to jam 9,000 different stories into one fucking hour-and-a-half movie. It's like they took little things from different parts of the Stephen King universe and just put it into one movie. It's stupid as shit. Ugh. Oh. Okay. It. So, right off the bat, this movie is a lot different than the miniseries. It was written like how Stephen King writes his books. It was dark and it's just bad. Not bad in a bad way, just dark and depressing. But The one issue that this movie has is in the second one is way worse with this is the nonstop jump scares. There are a lot of jump scares in this, and it really takes away from the story. I mean, there's a lot of friendship bonding and bonding and friendship. Like, for example, Stand By Me was another movie that did that. But those moments really get clouded over, and that's why I'm not giving it an A+, because those moments really get clouded over by these nonstop jump scares. It's okay to have a couple. It's okay to have a couple. I mean, that's why the first Paranormal Activity was so successful. I'm not a fan of Paranormal Activity, but I will say the original Paranormal Activity is a big marker in cinema history. It's a fucking classic, and I will say that. And I'll even say that about the original It miniseries, even though I don't like it. The original Paranormal Activity, The Blair Witch Project, is another movie I don't like, but I will say The Blair Witch Project is another influential horror movie. It started that whole found footage shindig, and so did Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity was the movie that put the nail in the coffin and made that genre popular. Those are staples in movie history. I get that. And you know what? This one will probably end up being a staple in movie history too, since this is one of the most gross rated R movies on the entire planet. This movie made a shit ton of money when it came out. And you know what? It's not a bad movie, but the problem that I have with it, and I always get different opinions when I watch a movie twice. So I've seen this one about 3 times now. And I will say, every time I watch it, the jump scares just seem to get cheaper. And another thing that I have wrong with this movie is I feel like a lot of other people would agree with me on this. So looking back on older horror movies from the 80s, like, for example, The Thing. The Thing has some of the greatest makeup effects I've ever seen in a movie. The Thing is a fucking classic. But just like The Thing prequel and it's a CGI mess. There is a lot of CGI, and it looks very computer generated and cartoony and not realistic. As opposed to the 80s, where stuff actually, the blood and guts actually looked realistic in The Thing. It did. It looked so much more realistic to me in The Thing than the CGI bullshit that they pull today. And it pisses me off a lot. And I feel like a lot of people will agree with me on that. The Thing, the gore in The Thing looks realistic. It does. But with CGI, it looks cartoony and computer generated. It looks like a fucking video game. But I feel like in a situation like this, you need to use CGI because of the demonic entity that is it. So, in a movie like this, you need to use CGI. But in a movie like The Thing was just fine without the CGI. But The Thing prequel is one of the worst CGI mess movies I've ever seen. It wasn't a bad movie, but it has a lot of issues. I think I want to take a different approach with my movie reviews. I think what I want to do is watch the movie. I usually watch the movie before I do a movie review. I think I want to go over the stuff that needs to be talked about and not go through the entire plot of the movie because I feel like that really bogs down the review. So I'm going to go through the stuff that needs to be talked about. And we already went over the CGI part of this movie. That's the biggest issue is the fact that there's a lot of jump scares and a lot of CGI used in this movie. But now Another thing I want to talk about this movie is there is a lot of references to the original in this. And there's one that a lot of people skip over. There's been a couple that have become popular, but there's one that always skips over. In the beginning of the movie, when Bill is giving Georgie the boat, if you look on his wall, the camera's only there for a split second, but there is a Beetlejuice poster on the wall. I don't think people get this, but Tim Curry's in Beetlejuice. Who played the original It? Tim Curry. And that is either a really fucking on-the-nose coincidence, or it's actually a reference to the original It. Now, the problem that I have with these movies, and that's why I fucking hate The Dark Tower, one of the Celestials. Okay, none of you are going to know what I'm about to talk about here because I am a big Dark Tower lore guy. I've read every book and every comic book, and hardcore Dark Tower fan. I know a shit ton. You do not want to get into a Jeopardy match involving the Dark Tower with me. If there was one book series that I paid the most attention to, it was the fucking Dark Tower, dude. I've read everything from comic books, paperbacks, to books about it. I even watched the stupid movie. And I've read most of Stephen King's other books, too. So I know what I'm talking about when I'm about to say this. There are these things called the Celestials. Or, they're called other things, but the main thing that you might recognize is the Celestials. And one of these Celestials is a beast or entity called the Turtle. And when Bill is in Georgie's bedroom after he dies, there is a Lego figure of a turtle. And it is a demon that came from the Crimson. What is the Crimson? Well, with the Dark Tower. So, okay. You got like this place. It's not necessarily a planet or a dimension, but in the middle of this place, there is a thing called the Dark Tower. It's literally a big black tower. And when you go inside this thing, there's different doorways to different dimensions. And this is the thing that links all of Stephen King's books, the Dark Tower. And one of the demons inside of the Dark Tower, I forget what level he's on, but you might recognize him as Randall Flagg from The Stand. Randall Flagg is played by Matthew McConaughey in The Dark Tower. And Matthew McConaughey played an alright Randall Flagg. I mean, he did good on that part, but the movie just sucked. I'll admit, Matthew McConaughey was not a bad Randall Flagg. Now, his name isn't always Randall Flagg. It's been multiple things. And another one of my personal theories, I don't know if anybody else believed this, but the thing, Randall Flagg's first appearance is in The Stand, where he shows up. Well, I'm going off the miniseries here, because I've only read The Stand once, so I'm not going to get into that. But he shows up at that old woman's house, and he's standing in front of a row of corn, and there's rats everywhere. And I believe there's something mentioning he who walks behind the rows. Well, I have a theory that maybe Randall Flagg is actually he who walks behind the rows in Children of the Corn, because we never actually get to see that entity's full form. That's one of my theories. And basically demons or entities like Randall Flagg and it come from the Crimson. And there's basically these things called Celestials, and the only Celestial that it is afraid of is, you probably already guessed it, the turtle. Now, the turtle has never showed up in any media. It's only been talked about, and it never really shows up in the book. It never shows up in the book. They just talk about it. It's mentioned because it's like this all-powerful being. It's really confusing. But, dude, you'll spend decades just looking through all this shit inside the Dark Tower. I mean, it's a non-stop mess. And not to mention, the Dark Tower and the Gunslinger, which is part of the Dark Tower movie, those are two totally different. They're in the same universe. They take place around the Dark Tower, but they're totally different series. They have totally different premises, too. And that's why I hated that movie so much, is because it didn't make sense at all. It did not make sense. And those of you who have read the Dark Tower series know exactly what I'm talking about. The creation of the Dark Tower movie did not make sense. I think the Dark Tower would personally be better as a TV series because there's so much shit in between it. Also, all that shit where most of Stephen King's stories take place in Derry, I have a feeling maybe it's just Derry's in different dimensions, and that's probably the key behind that. But now that I've given... But I do appreciate that this movie does recognize that the Dark Tower is a thing because of the turtle reference. I mean, it's on the nose. These are just on the nose references, and they gotta mean something. So, sorry, I'm eating chips. Okay. So, moving on. Seth Green was the person that played Kid Richie in the original. And there's a kid from Stranger Things. I think he's Will or something. One of the kids from Stranger Things plays the new Richie. And goddamn does he kill that role. I just got to talk about all the kid actors in this. They did a good ass job on this. And you know what? I like the little psycho Henry Bowers storyline. I liked it. He was a troubled kid. His dad was a dick. And he's fucking crazy. He killed his friends in the deleted scene. I like that version of Henry Bowers. As opposed to Greaser Henry Bowers from The Outsiders. Those of you who've seen the miniseries know what I'm talking about there. Damn. Stupid haircut. And you know what? I fucking love this movie because anything with Anthrax in it takes my heart away. Anthrax is one of my favorite thrash bands. Ah, god damn it, Anthrax, dude. I have all of their fucking CDs, and I'd put my top 3 would be, okay, I wouldn't put Anthrax at number 1, but it would be number 1 Death Angel by far. Number 2, Anthrax. And if I had to pick a third one, which I will, that would be a cross between Creator and Tankard. What is Tankard? I feel like Tankard is like a really underrated thrash band. I fucking love Tankard. Tankard's awesome. And people don't give him enough love. Oh. No, actually, I found one that'll take number 3. So number 1, Death Angel. Number 2, Anthrax. And I gotta go with number 3, Testament. Testament is what got me into thrash metal. That was the band that got me into it. Testament is badass. And you know what? There's not an album that I don't like by them. Demonic was all right, but I've gotten into Demonic over the years. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna give this movie an A. I don't think it's good enough to deserve an A plus, because A plus would be movies like Hacksaw Ridge, Saving Private Ryan, Django Unchained. My personal opinion, The Hateful Eight. I like slow burn movies like that. In my opinion, The Hateful Eight was a masterpiece. I mean, I don't really know why people didn't like it. It was a very slow brewing movie, and it was actually very entertaining. And you know what? It paid off in the end. There was a big bloody finale with people getting shot in the dick and their head blown off. It was awesome. But people didn't like it enough. I personally thought The Hateful Eight was a good masterpiece. Man, it was classic Quentin Tarantino. The only Quentin Tarantino movie that I don't like is Death Proof, because that was just fucking stupid. I didn't like Planet Terror either. I do not understand Planet Terror. What the fuck? Gun Chick Leg. What the hell? I mean, it's funny, stupid, but it's just a stupid movie. Ugh. Anyway, I'm giving this movie an A, so remember to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.